سلام دوستان عزیز، نوشین نیکفرجام هستم در برنامه دانش و آگاهی در تلویزیون عصر امروز. امیدوارم هر جای دنیا که هستین خوب و خوش و سرحال و سلامت نشستین، به برنامه پرمحتوای امروز ما توجه میکنین و یه سری چیزای جدید یاد میگیرین. من امروز یه مهمون بسیار نازنین دارم که ایشون فارسی بلدن حسابی، از منم بهتر، ولی به خاطر اینکه محتوا خیلی مهمه و ما داریم راجع به هوموسکشوالیتی صحبت میکنیم بیشتر و LGBTQ+، دوست دارم که ایشون خیلی راحت تر بتونن اینا رو به زبان انگلیسی برامون توضیح بدن. در نتیجه ازتون خیلی معذرت میخوام که وقتی که برنامه شروع میشه همش به انگلیسی خواهد بود، ولی حتما به دوستان و آشنایان و فامیلتون حتما اینو به اشتراک بذارین، چون برنامه خیلی خیلی پر از اطلاعات مهمه، چون بچه های خیلی زیادی هستن که الان در تمام سراسر دنیا به هوموسکشوالیتی گراییده شدن و هستن، اونجوری به دنیا اومدن. در نتیجه قبول کردن مادر و پدر یکی از مهمترین استپ‌های اولیه‌ایه که ما می‌خوایم در این برنامه بذاریم و امیدوارم که بعد از این، آریا جون خیلی خوش اومدی، بعد از این امیدوارم که هم خودت برگردی هم مهمونای دیگه برام بفرستی.
100% خوشحال میشیم. مرسی.
So I'm going to start in English. From now on the whole program is in English, and I apologize again for people who speak Farsi only, but if you're very interested, you can always send us messages. Arya can come back and he can speak in Farsi.
I would love that. Yes,
all right.
Sounds
Welcome.
Great. Thank you so much.
So I'm going to read your bio, and I'm going to ask you several questions that I have, and you know how I work, because I have a list of questions in front of me, and out of a sudden something pops up that I need to ask you. So Arya Marvazy is an Iranian-American LGBT plus activist and Jewish communal leader known for advancing inclusion within Persian and Jewish communities. With 20 years of experience leading non-profits, he has driven programs focused on equity, leadership development, and community building in Jewish communities and more broadly. Rising to prominence after a viral coming out that I cannot wait to hear about, his work bridges identity, faith, and culture to expand acceptance and representation across communal life. Arya holds a bachelor's in psychology from UC San Diego and a master's in organization behavior from NYU. Welcome again, Arya. I'm so happy that you accepted my invitation. It's sometimes tough to get you, I know that.
Thank you for having me. I'm grateful to be here.
Thank you. So let's go for the first question, the most important one, because that's something that everybody challenges with, who is trying to understand what their sexuality is all about. Mm-hmm. So can you take me back to your coming out experience, and what did that moment feel like within your family and community? That's a tough one. First of all, let me ask you a question.
Sure.
How many kids are you in the family? How many siblings?
I'm the middle child, so I have an older brother and a younger sister.
And everybody's straight. You're the only one.
They're both straight. Yeah.
Okay.
One gay child. One gay blessing.
Okay, that's truly a blessing. I mean, that has been my life experience with my close friends and relatives who are gay or homosexual or lesbian, whatever you want to call them, so that's okay. And I think that they're extremely amazing individuals.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Tell me what happened. When did you find out, first of all? Sure. How old were you that you found out?
In retrospect, first of all, thank you again, not only for having me, but for prioritizing the subject. I think one of the most important things we're doing is speaking publicly about something that is traditionally taboo in the Iranian community, and always when we open up taboo subjects, we offer a space for people to grow, to learn, and to belong. So
Definitely.
thank you for that.
Thank you.
I can say in retrospect, when I look at my childhood, there was signs that I wouldn't have known as a child. You know, if you think for a straight individual as you're growing up, what are the feelings you have for the opposite sex? Your crushes can come as early as 8, 9, 10, 11 years old. They're not sexual.
Mine was 6.
There you go. Simple as that. You know, they are organic inclinations you have. So when I look backwards, probably somewhere around 8, 9, 10. But I think at 12 years old, in my adolescence, there was a recognizing that I was different than the people around me, because I did experience a sense of attraction, even sort of childhood crushes, you know, we're not talking highly sexual things. And so at that time I came to know for myself, I believe, but I also completely rejected it, meaning I decided, you know, there's no way I'm coming out. I had no role models in my community, and I also heard people speak so negatively about LGBT people that I felt like I will keep it a secret. Fast forward, at 22 years old is the first friend that I came out to, first coworker, I should say, and so began a journey. It took 7 years from 22 to 29 to what so many of us do is we come out to the people that we think are safest first, and hopefully get the confidence to continue coming out to the people that might be even more difficult.
That's right.
So friends were likely easier. My parents might have been the biggest challenge, and that's kind of how I mapped it in my brain. Eventually, at around 29, I came out to my parents, and the scenario was that I knew I was going to be okay, right? It was about helping them understand I'm going to be okay, and helping them process the stigma, the communal and social stigma of what it means to have an LGBT child. But the moment that I told them, if I don't come out in a public way, people are going to continue suffering in silence, and I can help. And I really appreciate that my mom and dad heard that and agreed, okay, put a video on Facebook, you know. So it was very, for our standards, a very public thing to be doing, but it was met with unbelievable love, affection, celebration. It really did go viral in our community, not on the globe, but for Iranians and a lot of Iranian Jews in Los Angeles, but also more broadly, there was this feeling of, oh wow, someone's saying the hard thing. And there was also, I would say, the 5 to 10% that were very antagonistic and negative and said, that's nothing to celebrate or nothing to come out about.
I mean, we always have those people.
So, you know, but it was really an unbelievable moment, I think, for the larger community to see that we all, 90+%, accepted and appreciated, and were willing to at least start opening the subject up.
Okay, 10 questions.
I'm ready.
First of all, how did your parents react? I mean, I've seen people who say, not me, what did I do wrong, this happened. So were they talking about these things? Have they noticed anything prior for you, your coming out? And another question before I forget, what were you playing with when you were a little boy? Because
question.
It's very interesting. I have 2 grandkids, and I see my granddaughter is such a girl, and my grandson is such a boy that, you know, I cannot imagine my grandson playing with a doll. Not that there's anything wrong with it. It's just like he loves Legos and cars and this and that, and my granddaughter is like into, you know, dolls and other things. So what were you doing?
I mean, as a child, I remember playing with all of the above. So I did play with my Legos and my Hot Wheels and, you know, what would be typically boy toys. But I also loved to play with my friend. I remember my mom's best friend, Dorit, her daughter, Nicole, had this big Barbie collection. And I do remember enjoying playing Barbies with her. And I didn't feel bound by what was a boy thing and what's a girl thing. I just was being a child. It's not like I thought there was any stigma around what toy I chose. I was just curious
because it was like, it's interesting to see.
But it's an interesting point too, because I don't think it has any bearing on a child's sexuality. If your kid is at home playing with the wrong gender toys in your mind, I wouldn't take that as a direct signal that you have an LGBT
Okay.
child. But with my parents, to answer your question, it was interesting because, and I've seen a particular trend in Iranian community that is unique to others. One would expect that men have a harder time coming to terms with gay sons, and it's true that many men do, because they feel
that's
like...
what I think.
Right?
And that has been my experience, actually.
So,
that men are much
harder
more
time.
difficult.
Well, my experience was different. I think my dad had an easier time than my mother.
Really?
And I don't think it's because either of them have less love. I think it was because for my mother, and she can speak for herself, I love her so much, the queen.
Yeah.
She, I think, had those feelings of maybe what did I do, or how might have this been my fault, or my father was working and my mother was raising us. So I imagine, if I was to guess, there was some struggles of, could I have done something different, or how does this reflect on me? Because I was the child raiser, But truth be told, both of them, in an unbelievable way, after they agreed, first I came out and we had some period of time with just our family. But because the coming out video was so public, the momentum was immediate, meaning my activism started with a Facebook video and then just began.
I think I remember that, actually.
Yeah.
I think I remember that.
It really did. It put our whole family, in a way, in the public eye. And there was positive moments and there were very hard moments. I mean,
of course,
my mother was, I would say, verbally attacked at a grocery store, a Persian grocery store. Someone came to her and said, why would you let your son do that? What kind of an example are you setting for the rest of the community? It's hard
that
to believe.
That should be completely, reverse.
Right. Well, that's the truth. And 99% of people called my mother, texted my mother, and said, "Afarin, afarin be pesari ke bozorg kardi ke in karo kard." They really were so grateful to see someone step into their leadership.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. That's amazing. That's amazing. So, what were some of the biggest misconceptions about queerness and that you encountered growing up in the Iranian community, especially the Jewish Iranian community? Because I think that a lot of times we cannot talk about a lot of things. Right. I mean, addiction is one of them, homosexuality is another one. I've had programs about addiction, and I know, not that these are the same things,
right, no.
But the taboos that are in this community are up there. So.
Right. I have to start with one of the biggest misconceptions that I think people held up until, I would say, about 10, 15, or 20 years ago, was that this is a disease to be
I was going to
cured.
say that. This is not a disease. Exactly.
And what's interesting is, it was 50 years ago that this was removed from any medical diagnosis as a disease. But the thing is that society and cultural norms don't necessarily follow the pace of medicine.
Right.
Even the whole world of psychology and psychiatry acknowledges LGBTQ identity is a naturally, organically occurring experience. It's a variation. Every part of human expression is on a spectrum, including who humans are attracted to. So one is disease, of course. Two is that this can be cured. That the idea, because people start with the premise it's a disease, then there is a sense that maybe there are things that one can do to remediate or heal an ailment, and that's
or
of course
change the neural pathway that created it.
Right.
I've heard that. So
yes, I also
people expected me to do that. So as a psychoneurologist.
Oh, that's interesting. Right. Change my. Well, that's.
As a psychoneurologist, they expected me to do that, and I am a true believer that you come to this world because of the mission that you have ahead.
Amen.
Doesn't matter what you look like, because your soul is your soul.
Right.
But the way you react, like if you're straight or gay or tall or short or whatever, nothing to do with anything else.
I agree.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, what's interesting is the other misconceptions that I've heard and I also experience is One, that all gay men are effeminate and feminine behaving, or all queer women, lesbian women are like, and we have this idea in our minds of, well, what is gay behavior? What is lesbian behavior? What is man behavior? And what is women behavior? And there are, of course, norms, no question. But you can't predict, sort of by looking at someone, it could be that someone's behaviors ends up giving you some inclination, but that's all it is. It's an inclination. You do not know because you observe something you feel is effeminate. So there's that.
That's true. And sorry, I jump in. But
no, please.
There are a lot of men who are very in touch with their feminine side.
It's true.
But they're straight to the max.
Yes. Especially in Iranian community. We're a very stylish
and the
community.
way they talk and the way they walk and they do not have any kind of attraction to the same sex. That's the interesting thing.
Right. Exactly. So there isn't a sort of a formula of what one of us looks like, and this one is a hard one to name, but it's important that people hear it. There is a misconception that people become LGBT because of abuse. Mental, physical, verbal, sexual. There is this there's this attachment people have made in their minds of, well, something must have gone wrong, or divorce of the parents. Sure, I mean, that's what. So have you heard that before?
That one was like, oh my God, because the parents got a divorce. The boy didn't have a good role model, or the girl didn't have a good, female model or something, and that's why she or he turned into this. So this was like, but this is not right.
Of course. And so to all of these misconceptions, the really important thing to name is you have, again, a normative variance of human expression. This is organically a part of the human population. We've known this for decades. And there aren't, again, negative ailments or experiences that are precursors to LGBT. And so that's probably the major sort of bucket of category that people have misconceptions about connected to the identity.
So, I know what LGBTQ stands for, but for our viewers, if they do not know, would you please tell us what this abbreviation means, and plus?
You got it, yes. Of course. So the LGBTQ plus acronym, it stands for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, and sometimes it's queer or questioning, people who are on a journey of discovery. And then plus is a whole variety. I'm sure people have heard some of the alphabet of queer identity and the different labels that are about either gender identity or sexual orientation that don't fall in the normative male and cisgender. Cisgender meaning your gender expression is aligned with your biological sex at birth. That is as opposed to transgender. A transgender person has a biological birth sex, but a gender identity and gender expression that is often not their born biological sex. And so this is a category of individuals that fall outside of a heterosexual and or cisgender norm, as it will. But it's important to name the difference between sexual orientation and gender identity. Those things are very different, and so sometimes they all just get lumped in. And I can also say it's important to name queer. The term queer for some time had a negative connotation. It was a slur used against LGBT people, but in recent decades it has been a term that's really been reappropriated by the community to be a term of empowerment that just identifies like we all from these different labels within this larger umbrella identify as queer, and some like the term, and I mean some LGBT people like the term and identify with it. Some, especially from older generations, don't like it at all and don't identify as queer, and that's okay. I mean, it must be.
Actually, I would love to have a transgender as my guest. If you know anyone, and you can,
I would love to. I would love to check.
Honestly, because that's like, that's I think even tougher than being a homosexual. This is like completely a different identity, and how they get accepted in the community and in their families. I think that's going to be very, very difficult.
I would love to check with friends to see who would love to speak with you for sure. And I agree. I agree that it's not only about coming out as oneself, it is about, for transgender individuals, not becoming one's self.
Right.
So if you feel like you were born into the wrong body and you have to go through a journey to embody yourself, that is a much larger physical, mental, emotional arc. And I don't speak on behalf of transgender people, although I love them and I have so many transgender friends in some family. Understanding their psyche is a completely different experience than just understanding the variance in sexual orientation. And that's what I meant when I said before, a transgender person, they're sort of grappling with gender identity.
Right.
For me as a gay man, I'm grappling with sexual orientation.
Yeah.
And so that's who I'm romantically interested in or sexually interested in, whereas for them it's their gender identity and gender expression.
Did you ever have a girlfriend?
I didn't have a girlfriend, but I had experiences with women, and there in college I had an experience with a particular woman who was so sweet and so kind, and we had a beautiful, I'd say, friendship and relationship. It never got to labels.
Okay.
But at that time, I believed I will never come out. I thought I might take this secret to the grave. And so, I was 20 or 19 or 21, and really just trying to see what's possible for me if I'm locked in these parameters of the closet. And so I had some experiences.
If I may ask, if you had sexual relationships with her, was it enjoyable at all, or it was like, oh my God, I'm going to vomit?
I love this personal question.
I'm sorry.
This is why we're here. It's interesting. For most of my friends and family, anyone who I've heard who had those experiences, they had an adverse reaction. It was not a pleasant experience.
Right.
For me, it wasn't expressly unpleasant, but the first time I had an experience with a man, it completely landed on my body in I was like, oh, this is what romance is supposed to feel like. This is what connection is supposed to feel like. When I had it with a woman, things were off. It wasn't unpleasant. Couldn't say I hated it, but it didn't feel authentic to my,
Okay, thank you. Sorry.
My pleasure, please.
I mean, this is like...
Keep them coming. That's why we're here.
All right. Should I go to the next question?
Anything you'd like.
So, how did your relationship with your family evolve over the time? And what helped move things forward, if anything, then?
I have to take a moment to express so much gratitude. My brother is my rock and my best friend. And I told him, in my family, I told him first because I trust him most. And he's a really man's man,
How old
if
are
you
you
will.
guys?
So I'm 39, soon to be 40, and he's about 43.
Yeah, very close
so
in
about
age.
about 2.5 years apart. Very, very close, always have been. And when I told him, he was really shocked. And I thought he would say, I've always known. And he said, you were with a woman in college, or, I thought you were just, I didn't expect it. And I'm sorry that you couldn't tell me sooner. And he really stepped immediately into a source of support. And that was incredible and a huge, especially with your family, the first person you tell, it will change your genetics. It will change your neural pathways because you are building a reinforcement or a antagonism.
That's right.
And so, as you know, from the neurology of it all, and he gave me that foundation to then feel the strength to tell others. And I told my siblings knew before my parents.
Okay.
And when I told my sister, she's about 6 years younger. She was just so loving and supportive. But the whole family, I want to say, today are allies because they don't just love me for who I am, but when the opportunity arises, they stand in solidarity with the LGBT community, and that's my mom and dad now, help other parents grapple with this subject. You're welcome to have my mom here. I'm sure she could speak in Farsi and tell her own side of this story.
Actually, I would love to. We'll talk after
I'm sure she'd be eager. But it made our family stronger.
Right.
And it created a scenario where we did open up doors to be even more honest with each other about every part of our lives, not just my story, but the other things that come with. We're going to support each other no matter what.
Okay. Question.
Please.
Are you married?
I'm not married now. Single.
Okay. So your brother, I think I saw your Instagram post. You have nieces and nephews?
Indeed, yes.
So how do you explain to them about your sexuality? Probably you go, if you have a boyfriend, you go with your boyfriend or a partner. So
it's a really good question. Yeah. So we haven't crossed that bridge in our family. I haven't had a relationship to take someone home to them just yet, and that would be a beautiful way to enter the subject. And of course, I'm not talking to my 7-year-old niece or the younger nieces and nephews below her yet about who I am and who I date. So it's not come up in conversation yet, but what's beautiful to know is they already go to school with children who have 2 moms, 2 dads. Their first exposure is not going to be their uncle. Their first exposure is being a child in the world. And also, I mean, in television and movies, there is representation of LGBT families and people. And so what's different for us, it was the first time we might see a gay marriage and then think, oh, that's possible. For them, they're raised with that consciousness.
That's right,
which is really powerful. But I look forward to the day, when I can bring someone home and have that conversation. But to allow it to be fully organic and not some sort of coming out. It's a natural part of life, and it can naturally exist.
Okay, amazing. All right. So, let me see. Were there moments where you felt pressure to choose between your cultural identity or your queer identity? And what did that look like for you, if it was?
Yes. So much. So much. I guess for the English speakers, I'm going to define some Farsi terms, and for the Farsi speakers, you'll understand. But it's important to name Khejalat and Aberu. And I would love your help to actually definitions. But I look at Khejalat as either embarrassment or shame, that can be associated with different parts of one's self or one's actions. And then Aberu, which is the intersection of reputation and respect. These 2 things are foundational to Iranian community, and everything we do, it's a collectivist society. We don't act as individuals; we act as units, family units, and so everything you do either brings shame or honor. The Japanese are very similar. A lot of Asian cultures are very similar. So I of course understood that system from a very young age and realized, oh my goodness, okay. I have to stay in the closet because this will
ruin my family.
They say harm your siblings' capacity to get married, or bring dishonor to your parents. Or I heard so many terrible things growing up that kept me deeply in the closet because I never wanted to harm my family. I love them so much, and especially my parents, who I have only had a loving relationship with. And so those cultural norms are sort of they were like handcuffs in a way of being stuck where I knew my truth, I knew my potential. As I slowly came out to different friends or even family members, and they all, of course, were like, don't worry, your parents are going to love you, it's going to be okay. I tried to explain to them, especially the American ones or non-Persian ones, you don't get our community, our community's different.
That's true.
We're not in American culture, you have this beautiful, you do you, be you.
Acceptance.
Live and let live. It's a very, individualistic emphasis.
That's right.
And that can be beautiful, but I think it is beautiful that for Iranian community, we're so family-oriented and community-oriented. To some extent. But the hard part of that balance is that then the shame and honor thing can limit people's self-expression and authenticity.
True. Wow. All right. Let's see. what does support actually look like to you? Not in theory, but in reality. And everyday actions from family or community members.
It's a good question.
Yeah.
And I think I want to say something that is, it's the foundation to my answer, which is whether you know it or not, whether you want to accept it or not, or believe it or not, you have LGBTQ people in your life.
Yeah.
I am venturing to say it's a matter of fact. Of course, I don't know your friends and family circle, but it is a reality of the universe between your family and friends, co-workers and colleagues, people that you interact with, bank, gym, supermarket, and otherwise. You interact with LGBT people, again, whether you know it or not. So one framework to consider this, support within is, how do I speak? How do I discuss the subject even when I don't know who around me is or isn't, and never making assumptions, especially around children.
Right.
And especially, let's say there are children and you have some inclination that maybe my child is expressing some level of difference energetically, characteristically, in terms of their expressions, mannerisms, toys, whatever it might be. How might you speak openly? One of the things we say is, in high school, I remember, the number of times I was asked, do you have a girlfriend? How is that going? What about bringing a girl home? All that. And the subtle switch to, is there anyone you like?
Right.
Or is there anyone that you are seeing? It's a simple switch. It's not suggesting you're gay.
Right.
It's simply allowing me to define in my mind, who that might be. They're leaving openness to.
That's right. Yeah.
And so that's one really powerful avenue for support. I would say the other is, and this is when we say the difference between someone who supports LGBTQ community and is an ally. The term ally is attached to action. So it requires that you do something beyond know on the inside and feel on the inside, I love my kid equally, or I love my cousin or aunt or uncle or neighbor the same way, even though they are LGBTQ. It means when someone says something negative, maybe you might use your voice to say, that's wrong, or I'd love to try and give you a different perspective. Or, for example, when the Pulse nightclub shooting happened in Florida, it was the biggest, at the time it was the biggest terrorist attack on American soil on the LGBTQ community, and over 50 people were LGBT people were murdered. One unbelievable show of support was people reaching out to their LGBT friends and family they knew to say, I'm thinking about you. Right. I imagine today is extra difficult. Kind of the way that in our Iranian community, our friends may reach for us and say, there's a war with Iran right now, how are you doing? So it's having a consciousness around us being in your lives, and then using your voice, I would hope, to try and be supportive where you can.
That's amazing, yeah. By the way, what was Kardashian's husband?
Caitlyn Jenner.
Caitlyn Jenner.
Yes.
How do I say she? He? Anyway, she.
Yeah.
Now she's a she.
She.
But all the time, on and off, if I was watching the show here and there, it was interesting. I would say, he doesn't look like a real masculine man, even with his sports background and everything.
Sure.
You think that he has to be very macho. But I think he did the greatest thing coming out as a transgender and going to the public and showing it, and having people understand how difficult it is to be in somebody else's body, basically.
Yeah.
So that's I've never met him, but amen to him.
I will say he's probably one of the most controversial trans figures in the world, and when you have a trans guest, I invite you to ask the same or ask about Caitlyn's activism, because it's important to have a trans perspective on, from one angle, gratitude for the exposure to the reality of transness. Absolutely.
Because it's difficult.
Yeah. And from another angle, there have been some interesting actions and behaviors that are less important for me, not that they're not important for me. I think I would prioritize having a trans person's perspective on that activism. Okay. Yeah.
So I look forward to my next
We'll get Caitlin here.
That would be great. So, what do you wish Iranian parents understood after their LGBTQ children that they often miss?
I would say one of the most important things that you can know and understand about your child is that your child is whole and is perfect however they are. And I know that so many of our friends and family members believe that deep down inside, but sometimes our ego or our systems of khajalat and abaru get in the way of our capacity for unconditional, undying love and affection for our child just as they are. And if you start from that place of unconditional love, there's nothing your child can do wrong to lose your love, right? And so if that child comes out to you and you have the blessing of an opportunity to help them know themselves and be themselves and see themselves in their fullness and their authenticity, you have an unbelievable opportunity to be as close as possible to your child and to grow with them and to build with them, to have them love and trust you in the way that every parent I hope aspires to have their children love and trust them, and to have a healthy, long-term, lifelong relationship. One of the things that harms LGBT people the most is that initial negative, harmful, sometimes really abusive, angry reaction, where over time the reaction gets better, but that first thing you do, if that first reaction, even if you don't understand it and you say, I don't have the tools to understand this, but I love you, know that there is nothing you could do that would make me love you less, you are doing an unbelievable service to your child. And what I want to say to any parent who is listening or maybe grappling with the subject is 10, 15, 20 years ago, maybe people felt alone. Today we have a whole community. I mean, there is a whole parent support group, me and my whole group of friends. There are multiple organizations. We are out here to help one another and to no longer feel solitary challenges or be stuck in ignorance because there isn't who to turn to support us. So know that your child is perfect. Love your child, of course, as I imagine most listeners do. All listeners, we hope. But also know that there is help and there is support, and your initial reaction to your child, either exploring even some curiosity or some inclination, or firmly saying, I identify a particular way, your reaction is monumental to their entire sense of psychological and in some cases psychiatric well-being.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I hope parents listen, please, because I mean, I love when my friends and relatives that I know, they come and introduce their son or daughter and their partners at their
Yeah.
This is my son and his husband or his partner, or this is my daughter and her partner or something. And I think just saying that in a public matter, that
Absolutely.
you're in a party, it's so great. You're not ashamed. You're proud that your daughter or son knows what their identity is. It's tough.
True. It is. I'll give you I mean, you didn't ask, but it's helpful to name just how far people come along. It was very important for me to come out to my grandmother, my living grandmother, and not have someone else tell her. So when I sat her down, we had lunch, and I expressed this to her. In a way, I watched her heart break in front of my eyes, because at first I think she was like, wait, you like my Arya is gay? And I said, yes. But immediately, this woman who didn't grow up with any norm said, come sit on this side of the booth with me. She said, she hugged me and she kissed me. She said, I love you. It's okay. I love you anyway. And then she said, I want to ask you for a favor, please. if maybe you'll just stay quiet and you know, we love you, your parents love you, you just don't have to tell anybody else. And then this is the masterpiece moment. She had the wherewithal to say, Badika, you know, azad mipursam, is it wrong for me to ask you to be quiet about this? And I said, it's not wrong, it makes sense, but I'm not going to be quiet, actually, Grandma. Like, people are suffering, and I'm going to be loud, but I'm going to take my time. I'm going to do it with my parents' support. And even she came around, and now she's the one encouraging me to date and find my partner. And she's like, I'm going to dance at your wedding. You know, find the right man already. It's beautiful.
Right. Amazing. You know, it's funny. My experience has been that sometimes the grandparents are even more accepting.
It's true.
And it's weird, you know, because of the background, you think that, oh my God, this is really bad if they find out.
It's true.
But I see, like, you know, they're more accepting of a lot of things, even tattoos, that, you know. Like
more life experience.
So I'm glad. Who does your grandma? I have to meet her. Huh? So, let's see. Did I ask this? I don't know. I forgot. Okay. Did I ask what have you seen attitude? I didn't ask you this. Did I?
I don't think so. No. What was the question?
No. Okay. So okay, we talked about that. How often? No. Sorry. How have you seen attitudes shift even slightly in the community over time? And what do you think is driving that change? I was in your, I think you guys had the first gathering, LGBTQ gathering a few years ago in Hollywood.
Yeah. 2015 or 14, I'm forgetting.
It was, I came with my best friend and another good friend, and her son was my client when he was little, when he was 15.
Sure.
And I told them, this is the first meeting and I want to go, and I had my cousin and a bunch of other people on the panel, and I was shocked to figure out that all these parents that I see, they have a child who is either lesbian or transgender or, you know, or homosexual, or, you know.
Yeah.
And it was amazing. The way they accepted it, it was like, wow. Or one of my friends recently came to me and said, by the way, I'm sorry I couldn't invite you to my son's wedding. He just got married to his partner.
Aww.
Now they're trying to have a child. So it was, I mean, it's like so beautiful to see, oh my God, you're so accepting. And it's like, I didn't even know.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
And it really is, you can feel the change. Mm-hmm. One of the best stories I've ever heard is a friend's mom called me, this was 5 years ago, so figure about 5 years into my activism.
Right.
And she said, somebody said something homophobic at Shabbat dinner, and the room pounced on him. The room was like, you know, like, khajalat nemikeshi, like, you're not embarrassed to say something so ignorant. And it was the first time I heard the tables turned. You know, like, whereas typically the homophobic comment was so normal for me growing up, now if you were to say something homophobic, the community is saying, we've learned too much, we know too much, we don't have that same ignorance, you must grow out of your. So that's one really powerful example. And I think, to your point right now, I mean, khastagari, the concept of matchmaking your children in our Iranian community, is happening for LGBT children as well. People are in synagogue saying, I have a gay son, do you have a good, you know, a good man for him? Or and so, like, even my own friends and family are like, they're like, we're looking for you, you know, we have you in mind. So it's these are all signposts that we have a raised consciousness, a raised awareness, a raised acceptance. And of course, I mean, it's different when you see 200, 400, 700 person wedding for an LGBT person, and our community is so eager to celebrate love, you know, and it's all signs that we're doing things in the right direction. I will say, in some small pockets, unfortunately, I've seen some regression on the acceptance because of particular, I believe, ideologies that are becoming normalized, even if they're not true, sort of going back to pathologizing parts of the LGBT group, in particular transgender individuals, and that's, I think, a major current struggle beyond just lesbian and gay. Sometimes even bisexual people continue to get this stigma of, oh, that doesn't exist, you're just on your path to gay, but you just are not willing to say gay yet. It's untrue. Some people do have a sincere capacity to love and to engage romantically and sexually with both genders.
That's true.
It's not that shocking.
No,
if you think of the diversity of 8.5 billion people, that this diversity exists is very expected.
Of course.
You know?
Of course. Yeah, I was going to ask you a question actually about that, something like that. It's going to come. I should have written it. I was just like, but that is very true actually. Let me see. For someone in the community who is quietly struggling with their identity, what would you want them to hear from you?
Yeah.
Because I know, I mean, I see my son's friends, honestly, or my daughter's friends, some of them.
Yeah.
I said, when are they going to come out? And it's weird. It's like, I don't even know if they're gay or not.
Sure.
But if you want to say gay, if there is some kind of, I don't know, identity that you can put on somebody, they look very, very, very feminine.
I see.
But they are not out. My question before you forget,
Sure.
or before I forget. Have you heard if being homosexual might be genetics? Because if you see a family that, I mean, I've seen families whose cousins, they're all gay, or they have two gay kids.
Right.
Is that something genetic or environmental, or just spirit suggested that this is how we're going to come out in this lifetime?
So it is. 3 minutes. It's the intersection of both. It is both environmental and what I understand is that LGBTQ identity is a product of the intersection of environment and genetics. Okay. And so there is no, you certainly cannot, and they have not identified a gay gene. Right. There are so many different studies around sort of, after a woman has a male son, there's a particular hormone that is released in the uterus that potentially makes the next son that much more likely to have a particular genetic that has been associated with homosexuality. But none of this is causality. None of this is, if you do this, your kid will be gay, or if you have a gay family member, your kid is 12% more likely to be gay. We do not have those answers. Right. We do know that it is a organically and fundamentally natural diversity of the human expression. And so I think it's more important for people to understand it cannot be prevented. Right. It cannot be healed. It does not need to be pathologized. Right. More than understanding what percentage is genetics versus environment. You know, like so many of our characteristics we have a genetic predisposition to, and then environmental factors activate or don't. But to that question about the child struggling, I know we're running out of time. I really just want to say
that's so important, actually. It's like,
you are not alone. We are a large community there to help you. I mean, my Instagram is below here, but also my email is there. Under the conditions of complete privacy, if you want to speak to anyone, and this goes for parents, siblings, the LGBT people themselves, cousins, family members, friends, whomever, reach for those of us in the community who are making us public, making our stories public so that you don't have to suffer alone, and know that in a community where it's sometimes hard to keep a secret, that we are committed to supporting one another until people are ready to come out on their own terms in a way that feels safe. You know, there's no push for people to come out because it's not always safe. Right. If someone comes out and they get kicked out of their home, I wouldn't recommend coming out to them. You know, there is reasons and ways and, you know, whys that people do or don't, and that's holistically up to them, but I do want people to seek support where it exists, and we are out here and we want to help as many people as possible, so reach for us. And thank you so much for making that.
Thank you, but a lot of times
public.
we don't even know how the parents are going to react.
It's true.
That's the whole thing. I mean, if you are a part of the LGBT community, I think that you should do your best to come out, because you become free.
Yeah.
Why do they say being in a closet? Saying so.
It's freedom outside.
Freedom.
It just has to be held with the reality that for some people it becomes unsafe.
Yeah.
And so if we say everyone come out, but some people know they will potentially be abused or kicked out of their home, we can't have the same answer for them.
Yeah.
Even though I agree, coming out for many, for everyone that I know in the arc of time,
right.
But it doesn't mean that everyone is on the same timeline, and that's an important thing to remember, that people need to do things on their terms. Even when we feel like someone might be gay, it's not helpful to say, "Are you?" or I've always known you were gay. I think sometimes people say that and they think it's a way to say, I've always known and it's okay. But the truth is, until someone comes out to you, you don't know if they are or aren't.
That's the
right?
That's the
you have
thing.
to let people be in their own time and have their agency around the subject.
That's true. So, Mariam June, do we have time for one more question or not? Huh? No? Oh my God, I have 2 more questions left. So you have to come back.
More than eager to come back.
Thank you so much.
Such a pleasure.
I'm gonna see if I can come to talk to your mom and bring her.
I would love to get her in here.
That would be wonderful, and I would really encourage everyone to share this video with your loved ones.
Please.
And as I said, if you want it in Farsi, Arya speaks better Farsi than I do, honestly.
I don't know about that. That's
like,
kind.
I was amazed when I was talking to him before. So, but we're going to continue this program in the next few weeks, because it's extremely important, and our community needs it enormously. So, thank you so much again.
Thank you so much. Genuine pleasure.
Yeah,
Thank you for
and
everything.
I look forward to seeing you soon. Everybody, hope you have a beautiful weekend ahead of you. And I'll be back next week. Take care.
Take care.